Good morning, everyone. So today we are going to talk a little bit about the future. And today I am going to try my best to predict the future for us web developers. Now, this is of course just me kind of feeling the waters and using my holistic understanding of the web world and all the things that are going on in IT. And I can't promise that this is what's going to happen, but I can tell you what I'm going to spend the next 5 years doing. And hopefully that will be good enough of a testament, because I would not want to put you in a situation where I tell you, oh, this is going to happen, and then I go and fuck off and do something completely different. I'm going to tell you exactly what I personally will be doing for the foreseeable future, what I will be investing my time in and basically betting my own career on. So listen up. Now, if we look at the web today, I see a few trends. I see a few things moving. Now, apart from, of course, knowing the basics such as JavaScript, HTML, and all of this good stuff, that's the bare bone basics. So for you juniors out there, what I'm going to tell you next is the thing that I think is going to be relevant for you once you reach mid-level programming. In other words, you have between 1 to 3 years at least of work experience. Don't dive into this without knowing the basics first, because it won't be good. It won't be a good idea. So within the next 5 years, my guess, or let's say 10 years to get the scope even further ahead of time, my guess is that the browser wars, which are virtually done now, I think that we have reached a consensus. I think that there is peace in the browser world right now. And I think that the browsers have joined forces to fight the mobile devices, to mobile native apps. I think that within a very, very short amount of time, we will see a switch from mobile native devices over to web almost completely. And my guess is that there are a few key technologies that are in the works right now that is going to spearhead all of this change. I still think that it's going to be relevant for you to know JavaScript frameworks and so forth, because we're still not at the point where the web standard is so good that we can do really nice reusable visible components. I still think that is fairly relevant, although I would say that I would put emphasis on knowing vanilla JavaScript and getting really good at developing vanilla JavaScript, as opposed to using something like React and Angular and so forth, because I think that these things are going to get shifted out very, very soon because of what is happening in the browser, really. What's interesting is that I don't think that you will see much in the terms of difference when it comes to CSS or JavaScript. But what is interesting is that Microsoft has announced not that long ago that service workers will be fully supported in the next version of Edge. And that is a big one. It wasn't all that long ago that service workers became a term that was just really pushed by Google, and they were trying to push it into existence almost by themselves. But the adoption rate has now grown so that most of the browsers are actually supporting, the modern browsers are actually supporting service workers. And for some of you, you may think that, oh, this is just this kind of cool innovation that has come around and offline first and so forth. But I don't think that you're giving it enough credit. So let's think about this. The reason why the browser is not the go-to platform for absolutely everything when it comes to interfaces and application development and so forth is because of two things, I will argue. The first and foremost thing is that you need a network. The second thing is that you don't have the type of performance for, say, graphics rendering and so forth that you have on the native devices. In other words, you can create a more powerful and richer experience when it comes to heavyweight type of computations on the native device or the native applications. Service workers creates a situation where you can literally load a web application just as you would load any type of native application. You can instantly load it, you can have it offline, and the network becomes basically a thing you use in the same way a native device uses the network. You just go to the network when you actually need some fresh data. You can actually have an experience that is completely offline if you want to. You may not think that this is a big deal, but it is a very, very big deal. Because that means that you have the same type of power and accessibility as a native desktop application or a native mobile application without the downsides of having such a thing. And the downsides is that you have to actually download the thing, and you have all this, how do I put it? The web is more accessible. It's easier for people to get to your stuff and get the stuff to get the value that you are providing. And reducing that down to almost nothing and still maintaining the same level of value. I mean, there would be no reason for you to have a desktop application or a mobile application if the web page that you are downloading works exactly the same way. If you hit a URL and hey, that's it, and you can now use it as you would any native device, that is more powerful than you can imagine. So what about the other part? So the first and foremost thing is that I think service workers are going to completely change the way that we do web development today. And I think that this is the case because I see a lot of technology and innovation going around about basically things are being added to JavaScript as a standard and the browser. Everything is being geared towards lazy loading and performance optimization, and basically creating a situation where you can download an entire application as seamlessly as just loading a web page. But once it's on the device, once that all the initial assets are there, you have something as powerful as a native application. And none of the native applications can do that. None of them have that. They cannot lazy load, or rather that's not the trend at least. Lazy loading and having that type of seamless experience is what I think is coming next. I think that the next challenge for the web is to create applications that are behaving and acting as if they were native devices, and having a experience where you literally just visit a web page and then you have an application installed on your computer. So things such as lazy loading, smart caching, static assets, and so forth. Optimizing all of this to have a seamless experience where you may show the user something and then in the background loading in everything else. I think that's the next step. And I do believe that the web is going to take over because of one very specific thing, and that is WebAssembly. WebAssembly is now also pretty much supported in all the major browsers. One of the most inspiring concepts that I've seen in WebAssembly is that they actually have a game engine. You have that is literally running in the browser, a games development platform. It's absolutely amazing. You literally have an interface, an editor, where all the interfaces is done in CSS and HTML, just as any web page. All the menus and bars and so forth are done with web technology, and the layout system that has come from HTML and CSS is among the most powerful there is. Nobody has really made a nicer UI layout and so forth, UX experience, development experience, than the web. So that's covered. The issue has always been that the web is not performant enough. You can't actually make very heavy computations, but with WebAssembly you can. So because of that interface, because you can actually create binary code or native code, send it to the browser and execute it as you would any program on any platform, you actually now have access to almost the same type of performance as the native device, but within the web context. That is truly powerful. It is truly powerful, and I actually argue that that's why I think that that's going to be Rust's biggest gain. I think that if there is something that's going to make Rust one of the core languages of a good web developer, it's going to be WebAssembly. Because Rust is a better and more accessible development experience than C++ and all these other languages that kind of go down to that could be used in order to do WebAssembly. Rust is basically a nice experience, and we know how notoriously picky web developers and front-end developers are with their tools and how easy it is to adopt things, which means that Rust has a really good chance here to become one of the core languages for WebAssembly. Assuming, of course, that WebAssembly becomes something that is fairly standard, and I think it will. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I don't think that WebAssembly is just, oh yeah, we're just going to make everything in WebAssembly, but I do think that the importance of WebAssembly is going to increase in the browser in relation to how, as I said, everybody's going to go over to simply making web applications that feel as if they are native devices or native applications. That's my prediction. So what does that mean for you? Or rather, what does that mean for me? Well, since I already know things such as Java, which is one of the, I would argue it's one of the most important server-side languages that you can know. I already know Node very, very well. That means that I have JavaScript, I have HTML, and I'm fairly good at CSS. I have these web-specific type of, this knowledge I've acquired, and I feel very comfortable in these technologies. That means that the next step for me is to get to be a true master of service workers, web workers, all of this stuff, and the techniques that I talked about, lazy loading, and trying to be as good as possible at that type of technology and optimizing web performance. That's going to be my focus, with one addition, the second addition, which is to be become equally good at Rust. My guess is that's going to be the best bet. By learning WebAssembly and using Rust to do that, I think that I would set myself up to be the perfect, basically to be the most future-proof web developer there is. Everything indicates that this is the way that things are going to play out. That's my guess. I really think that we are closing in on the end days of this mobile native device application battle between web. I think web is going to win this, and I think and that's at least what I'm going to do. I'm going to prepare for the aftermath of all of this. And I think that the aftermath of the web finally winning the platform war is going to be very closely tied to service workers and WebAssembly and lazy loading and all this stuff that I've been talking about. I think we are entering a new era of web development. I think that the days where you could just kind of hack things together and put something on a web page and people didn't really care so much, it was a different mindset. I think that the mindset is completely changing. I think that the type of quality and the quality requirements that we have today on native mobile devices is coming to the web. I think it's coming strong, and I think that within 5 to 10 years, the standards put on a front-end developer or web developer is going to be much higher than they are today. Have a great day.